They're going to have a whiteout, but it's at noon because Penn State can't escape the noon games, unfortunately. SMU at Penn State, first round of the college football playoff. We've talked all week, Ari, about Beau Pribula not playing for Penn State. Now, it's unclear how much he would have affected the game because he's the backup quarterback. But it's interesting because he's a guy who had a role, and him being out, and then the question of how much you run Drew Aller, the starting quarterback, without an experienced backup becomes very interesting. And it makes another person in this game really interesting, and that is Tyler Warren. Ari, let's look at the Prize Picks number for Tyler Warren. If you're not playing Prize Picks, this is the most fun daily fantasy game in America. Download the app. Use the code Staples. Play $5. Get $50 instantly. You've got players, stat categories. You pick a square. Pick at least two. The more you pick, the higher the potential payout. They have the NBA, the NFL, every sport, essentially. We're talking college football, though. Tyler Warren is very interesting. He's in name only a tight end, Ari. But he's so much more. He's a tight end. He's a fullback. He's an H-back. They've actually had him snap the ball on a play where he was an eligible receiver and thrown him a touchdown pass. Like, there's so many things they do with him, and I feel like the Tyler Warren Wildcat suddenly becomes a big part of this game.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go back and break down tape of Penn State, their offense runs very efficiently on the ground. And I thought that the reason why they had the best offensive performance of the year against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game a few weeks ago was because Aller ran the ball more, right? Like, I think there was a correlation between those two things. But there's a lot of mental gymnastics that you have to do when your backup quarterback, who they had packages for in Beau Pribula, isn't playing. But if you want to keep running it, who do you go to? The Mr. Everything, right? The guy who gets it all done, passing, throwing, catching, running, you name it. This guy does it. And, also, too, one of their best playmakers, if not the best playmaker on the team. These are the games that these guys have to be involved the most.
Well, and Tyler Warren, so Prize Picks thinks Tyler Warren's getting in the end zone. I can tell you that right now because he's got a goblin square. So they have demon squares and goblin squares. Demon's a little bit harder to get, higher payout. Goblin square, not quite as high of a payout, but they feel like it's easier to get. So 0.5 rushing and receiving touchdowns. Essentially, you're saying he's going to score a touchdown on the ground or catch a touchdown pass. I think that's a pretty safe assumption as well, because without Pribula, who they would bring in to do some design QB running, I think Warren's your top option on the goal line, whether it's snap it to him, find a way to throw it to him, hand it to him. I think he's now Nick Singleton obviously is a big one too, Katron Allen, but 44 is the guy probably getting the ball near the goal line.
Yeah. In any regard. And hopefully they get creative with him too, Andy. It's do something we haven't seen. Like, this is the moment for that.
One other player I want to talk about in this game is Kevin Jennings at SMU. The quarterback at SMU does not start the season as a starter, took over early in the season and has been very dynamic, led the charge back in the ACC championship game. He had a pretty shaky start, but finished well. So his number for passing yards is 227 and a half. He's gone more than that 4 of his last 5 games. The only one he wasn't more than that was Cal, and he was 2.5 yards under it. So that is an interesting one because they are going to have him come out slinging for this thing to work, because Penn State is one of those teams that can sit on you. And I think SMU learned what happens if you start slow, because they started very slow against Clemson, and it took them a while to get going, and they couldn't get back. They did get back into the game, tied it, but then Clemson won on a walk-off field goal at the end. You can't play that kind of game against Penn State because they will just suck the air out of the ball and you're done. So I think SMU is going to come out chucking it. I think they are going to let Kevin Jennings loose early. And I think the more than on this number is a distinct possibility, win or lose for SMU.
I mean, think about how well he played as the game went on against Clemson, and they had a terrible start. Now, the question for Kevin Jennings is did he get the big game yips out in that ACC championship game? Because you have to acknowledge that though SMU is in the ACC and ran through it pretty easily this year, that this is uncharted territory for a Group of 5 conference team that is now making the jump into not only the power conference level, but now playing on the road at Penn State in December. Like, how do you handle that environment?
The atmosphere at Penn State will be considerably more intimidating than the atmosphere in Charlotte at the ACC championship game. Now, what was intimidating in Charlotte is a Clemson team that's been there before, a coach in Dabo Swinney that had won 8 of those things already. Like, that was the factor you had to get over. Penn State's in a new spot here too. Like, they've not been in this position. They've never made the college football playoff. They would have made it 6 times since 2016 had this format existed, but they've never actually made it till now. So this is new for them too. But like you said, they got that home crowd. That home crowd is very effective at intimidating visiting teams. So we'll see how SMU handles it at noon Eastern time on Saturday. College football playoff is here.